podcast 3. On the previous episode of podcast Draw with Me, I talked about indie comics. After I finished talking about the indie comics, I realized there's a few more indie comics that I worked on. So I figure just gonna start talking about those indie comics. So I've been working comics so long that I can't remember all the comics that I've worked on. So some of the publishers, after I finished making that video, the podcast I just remember like there's a whole bunch more. So while I'm doing the indie comics podcast about more indie comics, I'm going to be working on a commission. This commission is another indie comic publisher, ironic. They're called Bleak Haven. They asked me to work on some sketch cards. So these are the image that they sent me. So I'm going to be drawing them on 5-minute sketch cards. I posted on social media some of the sketch cards I've done that I've drawn in 5 minutes, and I'm gonna go and start doing those here while I talk about the other indie comics that I worked on. So I'm gonna draw this in order, and I'm gonna sketch it and then ink it. Probably just gonna ink it directly. So I'm just gonna use some of these reference. Okay, so following previous podcasts, some of the indie comics that I worked on, besides the one that we spoke about from podcast 2, I've also worked with another publisher called Diversity Comics. Diversity Comics was also a new publisher that I found on Wizard Magazine, and I called them, and I got a hold of them. They haven't really published anything before. Haven't published anything new before, but I called them and they got in touch with me, and they were interested in working with me on doing some inking. And the publisher actually came to San Francisco, and I met up with him. I think I also picked him up at the airport because I think he was from Texas or something. He told me that he was gonna come to San Francisco for a convention. The convention's called ApeCon, or Alternative Press Expo, in San Francisco, and he wanted to come to San Francisco and talk business with some of the other publishers there, and to get the scoop on working in alternative press and independent comics. The publisher's his name was Tony Lopez, and he was running his comic book company called Diversity Comics. Okay, and when he came to San Francisco, he got in touch with a couple of comic book artists, myself included, in that couple of artists. And there was another person, his name was Leandro. He was also living in San Francisco, and we all met up. I think we met up at an airport. And then all of a sudden, I met Leandro for the first time, Leandro Ng. Later on, we became good friends, and we also worked on a whole bunch of books together. But it's only because Tony Lopez, that independent publisher, put us in touch with each other. So we met at Alternative Press Expo, and when we started talking to each other, it was like there was this guy, Leandro. He was dressed like in these army clothes, like it looks like he just came out from a war or something. And he was very quiet, and he was this tall Brazilian guy. He was this Chinese Brazilian guy, and drinking a beer, sitting on a couch. I remember that very specifically because I didn't really know any like comic book artists at the time, and all of a sudden I meet this guy in person, in the flesh, and we spoke. And Tony Lopez said, we're gonna work on a book together called Alpha Corps, ALPHAKORPS, Alpha Corps. I remember when the first book came out, it was an ash can. Ash can is where they took photocopies of like 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, and then printed them out, and then folded together and just put a staple right there. So we did an ash can, and it wasn't even a full. It wasn't a full 20 something pages. I think it was only like 8 pages or something. So I inked over Leandro, and Tony designed some of the character, and he also drew some himself. So that, when we again, that was another project that we didn't get paid to do, because we were under. We knew that we weren't going to get paid. We just wanted to work and to draw comics. Leandro was someone who drew like Mike Deodato. That was his influence. Mike Deodato was from Brazil, and Leandro was also from Brazil. They weren't in the same studio. I guess Leandro was a big influence on from Mike Deodato. Okay, I'm gonna draw this, and there's a mountain over here. Let's see. I want to make this a little bit more exciting. And so this is an interactive podcast. If any of you guys have questions, please comment about down below, and I can also answer them. So in meeting Tony Lopez, we were at Alternative Press Expo, and I met a lot of other publishers there. Not so much Marvel or DC, but more independent publisher. There was this one publisher that Tony Lopez was really interested in getting to know and talking to a lot. And that publisher, they worked on a book called Arachnus, and the publisher's name was let me see if I remember, Mushroom Comics. And it was a two brother team. One of them was a penciler, one of them was inker, and they worked on this character that looks like I'm going to see if I can paint that picture for you. It says it's almost like a wrestler that was wearing a Captain America mask, except the eyes had a shield, not a shield, but like goggles or something on it, and he had like dreadnoughts coming out from the back of his mask, and on his back he had like these tentacles, kind of like a Dr. Octopus, four metal tentacles behind him, and he was all purple. And then he had like a spider logo all across his chest. So kind of like running off of the Spider-Man theme, Arachnus. And I can't remember who the names. They were brother. I think their last name was like I can't remember what they were. Well, anyway, we met up and we were at the hotel, and then they were kind of like, they were big shots back then. They were doing like a lot of variant covers, and uh, the publishers and printer were really into their work. And we met them, and then Tony was really excited about meeting them and talking to them and find out how they made comics, because he never actually made a comic. So talked to them, and then they were hoping that maybe Tony Lopez, the publisher of Diversity Comics, would draw something for them, and then I would be inking the work. We also met up with another artist. His name was Brett Evans, who was supposed to draw some of Alpha Corps. We did do some work together. I remember having breakfast with Tony Lopez and Brett Evans, and he drew a little sketch of a figure on a back of a comic book board, and then I did some inking on that, and then I think I gave it to him. I don't have that artwork anymore. So that was my first time inking over Brett Evans. I don't know. So Tony Lopez, I know he's doing comics these days, or he's doing a self-publishing these days. Brett Evans, I've totally lost touch with him. We found each other on social media like a few times, but then we never actually kept in touch. Leandro, I still keep in touch. He's a, I'm gonna draw a moon. I'm gonna draw a little circle here because it looks better. Leandro, I still keep in touch. He's a good friend of mine. Walden Wong. Okay, and then when the book was printed, we didn't get paid, and Tony said to us that we'll get you paid depending on how many books we sell and so forth. So when all was done, like, he just never paid us. But then he also wanted us to work on all these properties that he created. Among them was, besides Alpha Corps, there was also a book called Vampire, which never made it. But me and Leandro, we drew and inked a piece for like a promo piece, Vampire, and that never got printed. But the only thing that got printed was that ash can, and after that ash can, nothing else was printed. So that was another independent project I worked on. We're going to talk about another independent publisher. Another one is called Violent Messiahs, that I've done for a publisher named Hurricane Entertainment. I'm going to be drawing these characters over here. So that publisher, Hurricane Entertainment, I met at a comic book convention, and I let's see, I gotta write down Lightning Comics. That's another one. Like sometimes again, it's been like so many years since I've done these independent books that everything is just coming back to me as I'm talking about them. Okay, Hurricane Entertainment. They worked on a book called Violent Messiahs. The publisher was Jan. I think it's Jan. I don't remember her last name. And then the husband who also worked on it was William O'Neill. Yeah, Jan was I guess the editor, and William was the publisher. They work together, husband and wife. I don't know if they're still husband and wife now. Ever so often, I'll see William O'Neill posting cosplay photos that he does. He likes doing cosplay. And I don't think he's doing comics anymore. When we found each other, I was at a comic book convention and I showed them my samples, and they liked my work and they asked if I would be interested in inking Tone Rodriguez. Tone Tone Rodriguez. I think he's working on Stray Dogs or something for Image Comics right now. But before then, we worked on Violent Messiahs, and later on, he worked on Snake Plissken, and then he also went on to do like some Simpson comics. So he's been around doing comics for a while, and he's still currently doing comics these days. I worked on Violent Messiahs for a good, I think, 4 issues. And at the same time, when I was working on Violent Messiahs, I was also doing stuff for Marvel and DC at the time. You're probably thinking, why are you doing stuff for independent publishers while you're already working for Marvel and DC? So at the time, even so now, it's not the publisher that interests me to do the work. It's the project that I get to work on. That excites me, regardless of what it is or who the publisher is. I do enjoy doing the art. Okay, just because you make it into Marvel Comics or DC Comics doesn't mean that you can't do other work. So I remember doing stuff for Marvel and DC, and then they hired me to do some Violent Messiahs work, and the character was pretty good. I remember I was reading some of Spawn, actually not Spawn, Todd McFarlane's Psycho Circus, and Angel Medina, who was working on that comic book, his stuff was really detailed. Kiss Psycho Circus, and I remember Danny Mickey was the inker on it. There was like so much detail rendering going on, and I really like how what Danny Mickey, the inker, was doing on Kiss Psycho Circus. So when Tone Rodriguez was working on Violent Messiahs, I was trying to ink everything in that same fashion with all those details as much as I can. Tone wasn't really penciling every detail in there tightly, but I would go in there and I would noodle every detail. So in a way, I was kind of like drawing or doing finishes over Tone Rodriguez's work. So that was fun, and we did that for a few issues. And then they decided after a while that they didn't want to like work with me anymore, but because they didn't like that I was working with Marvel Comics and DC Comics at the same time that I was working for the book. You would think that some publishers would say, you know, this guy works for Marvel and DC Comics and he's working for us. That's like a boost in their publishing, like street cred or whatever. But they didn't like that I was working with Marvel and DC. They wanted all my time devoted to them. But as a freelance artist, like I'm able to juggle work. I'm very good at it, and I've been practicing and doing a lot of independent work while doing Marvel work at the time. So this was a long time ago, but they didn't want me to. They just wanted all my attention. But even though, like as a freelancer, you don't really need to tell publishers who you're working for. But since I talked to them at the convention, I would just tell them, I'm working for this, I'm working for that, and then they decided to let me go. So they had another inker that went over and took over, which is okay, which is understandable. As a freelance artist and a publisher, you're always okay to work with any publisher, and if the publisher hires you to do a project, you can just do the project, and then if they don't want to use you anymore, that's okay. That's why we're freelance. We can always work for other publishers. Publishers can let us go, or we can decide not to work for the publishers, and that's usually all okay. Let me see if there's any. Yes, Tone Rodriguez is really good. Yeah, Tony Lopez was the publisher, and then the publisher of Hyro Douglas. Yeah, Tony Lopez was the publisher of Diversity Comics. Tone Rodriguez, he was the artist on Violent Messiah. So these are two different people. Just so happens the names are almost the same. We're not really Tone and Tony. And yeah, so that's my foray into the Violent Messiah. Violent Messiah is pretty good. Later on, Hurricane, the publisher that did Violent Messiahs, they went on to print some of their books with Image Comics, I believe. Okay, draw this. So I'm doing these sketch cards for another independent publisher. The independent publisher is called Bleakhaven, and they wanted to do these little sketch images. I posted on social media some of my 5-minute sketch cards where I didn't really sketch stuff and draw and then ink it. I just go in there and just draw stuff directly based on some of the reference I'll see, and then that's what I'm doing here. And then they like what they saw, and they asked me to draw some of this because they're doing some kind of like storytelling, like reels or something. We continue drawing this. So that was those two publishers, Diversity Comics and Hurricane Entertainment. Another publisher, I'm getting into the fun stuff. Later on, I went into San Diego Comic Con, and I met another booth. And then this booth, they had this character called Cinder. Cinder, and the publisher was called Immortel Studios. It was run by David Hernandez, and the artist on the covers was Linda Hernandez, and in the interior work was I think it's one of the Hernandez brothers. I saw the work and I recognized the character. Cinder is one of those Batgirl independent comic book craze at the time, and I showed them my portfolio. And David Hernandez, the editor, really liked my work. I mean, he really liked it. I've never seen anyone who was so excited to see my inking samples. I thought he was sometimes you go and show your samples around, you don't really know if they really like it, or maybe they'll just say they like it, but don't really like it. But he really liked it. He asked if I had any photocopies of my work, and if I can give him some samples that he can hold on to. So I gave him my some samples, the photocopies that I've done. And in future podcasts, I'm going to explain how I made those samples. So for those of you who want to learn, stay tuned for that. When I gave him my sample packet, he took it. And after he took it, right on the back of the envelope, he drew a big exclamation mark. Okay, I was watching him draw a big exclamation mark. When I say big exclamation mark, imagine the Image logo, but instead of the eye, it was upside down. He drew a big rectangle and then a big oval on the bottom. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm making a big exclamation mark. So when I get back home or to our studio, I'll remember this packet, and then I'm going to give you a call." So, whatever you go and you give your samples out to whoever, you never know if they're going to call you back or not. But so it's I just gave out all my samples, and there was that. So went home. About a week later, I get a call from David Hernandez, and he did call me back. He called me back and said, "Walden, I'm working on a Cinder book, a new Cinder book, and I want you to work on it, but I don't have a penciler attached to it. Do you know any penciler that you would want to work with?" I'm like, wow, this publisher, who I just met at San Diego Comic Con, he's asking me if I know any pencilers that I can work with, that I would like to work with, and to see if we can do a book together. And I said, sure. So at the time, the only pencil I knew that I've worked with before was Leandro, because Leandro and I we worked on Entity Comics on Stargate uh, over in San Francisco. He also lived in San Francisco, and I met Leandro through Diversity Comics. Diversity Comics, Tony Lopez put us together, and that's how we all met each other. Okay, let me put some vanishing points over here. Not vanishing points, but some perspective. So it looks like they're coming from somewhere. And I'm going to use a brush to add some shadows to the work. It's kind of plain. Let's see if there's any questions as I go. Hey, Kai, how's it going? Okay. So so I called Leandro and I said, "Hey, Leandro, there's this publisher. They work on their company's name is Immortal Studios, and they wanted me to see if you're interested. Actually, they wanted me to contact some of my penciler friends to see if any of them are interested in drawing Cinder, one of the Batgirl books. Kind of like back then, all these Batgirl craze. They had like She, Way of the Warrior. They had Lady Death. They have like all these Helena, all those characters, and Cinder was one of those characters. So he was interested. He knew of Cinder. Cinder was this character that was wearing black leather holster top, and she had red hair, and her fire was it's like she's almost like a cinder. She instead of making fire from her hand, she like mixed like ashes and stuff on her hand. So we worked on the first issue together. Cinder, Linda Hernandez, the wife of David Hernandez, he also did the cover, and that was printed. It was printed in black and white, and it was like really good. We did a really good job in Cinder. I'm still, if some of you have actually seen that book, I'm still really proud of how that book turned out. It was a black and white comic book that Leandro and I worked on, and I'm still really happy with how it looks. Every so often, when I'm at comic book conventions, people will still bring that up, and I'll look at it, and it's really nice to see how that turned out. Even though it's like really old work, I was really proud of it. And with that one, I remember I was inking everything with a quill. I didn't know how to use a brush yet. In future episodes of this podcast, I'll talk about how I learned how to use a brush and how I learned how to use different tools as we continue doing more of these podcasts, because I have so much stories to tell. Okay, so after Cinder was published, everything was okay, and we did pretty good. And David said, "Oh, we're gonna pay you for it." So we actually got paid. Again, independent comic books doesn't really pay that much, but at least we got paid, and we got printed, and we had comp copies. Publisher sent us complimentary copies, and everything was good. Okay, I'm gonna go here. Let me see if I should do some of the shadows in the back. All that black. I'm just gonna taper some of these lines in like this. We do this really quickly. Since this is my own work, I could just do like whatever. So after Cinder was published, David Hernandez contacted us and said, "Walden, we're gonna do an intercompany crossover with Lightning Comics." Lightning Comics was the publisher of Helena. Yeah, I don't know if some of you may have been around for the Batgirl craze in comics, Helena. So I said, sure, I'll be happy to work on Cinder Helena crossover. So we started drawing the artwork, and we got Leandro to do it because Leandro, at the time, lived in actually he still lives in San Francisco now. He lived in San Francisco, and not only did he live in San Francisco, he only lived like 3 blocks from me. How much of a coincidence is that? Like only 3 blocks from me. Tony Lopez found us because we contacted him for work, and then he found two guys in San Francisco, and both of us lived in San Francisco and only 3 blocks from each other. So Leandro Ng and I, we became really good friends because we live so close to each other. Let me add some textures over here. I'm going to make his face go a little bit closer. Okay, there we go. just a little bit more detail over here. So we became good friends. We would talk to each other. We would hang out with each other. Even when we weren't working in comic books, we became really good friends. And when projects came, we started referring each other. We started helping out each other. He would I have projects, and then I would refer him. And then if he had projects, and he would refer me. And I'll tell you some of the other projects that we did together that's not comic book related. Okay, and then now we have the snowman. So Cinder Helena, we started drawing it for David Hernandez, and we also got in touch with one of the owners of let's see, Lightning Comics. I think his name was Steven Szynski or Zelinsky or something. We talked a few times on the phone, and then he really liked the work, and we started doing the work, and everything was okay. And they said, David Hernandez said that they're going to be paying us directly instead of the money coming from Immortal Studios. It's going to be coming from Lightning Comics. Okay, and I said, great. I met with some of the Lightning Comics, and everything was okay, and we became friends. And not only that, they got to know me a little bit better, and they were publishing other comics at the time. One of the comics was called Moxie. It was this girl that was created by Bill McAvoy. Okay, Bill McAvoy was inking over Mike Taylor at the time. No, I'm sorry. David McAvoy was a penciler, and Mike Taylor was inking him. This is before I knew, I knew those people, but I'm telling you the names now because I worked with them already, so I kind of know the names. So we spoke, and then I also decided I'm just going to show Steven Zelinsky. I think Zelinsky was his last name. He also had a brother that was running the company. He was a nice guy. He asked me, "Oh, great! How much do you charge? What is your inking rate?" And I said, I don't know. Like, I guess it really depends on what you have to offer as a publisher. And then he showed me this book, and he said to me, "Okay, what would you charge to ink this?" And I said, "I don't know, whatever you have to offer. Like, I'm not gonna quote a price and then like scare someone away, or so I'll just let him quote me whatever." And then he said, "How about this? Can you do this project for this much?" And I said, "Sure." At that time, if he said like any amount, I would just say okay, like, you know, because you're working on independent comic books, and then you don't have any other stuff to work on. You're just devoted. You just want to do comic book, or you just say okay to anything. So I said okay, but what had happened was he was. Let me see if there's any questions as I'm going. Refillable, yeah. These microns here. They're refillable. Like once they're out of ink, you can just remove this tip. Use a pair of scissors and just remove it, and then drop a few ink drops in there. If you look at some of my other videos, my most viewed videos is how to refill microns. So you can watch that video and learn how I do it. It's really easy. If I need to refill this pin here, it'll only take me like maybe 5 minutes, and I can start using it right away. There's no wait time for it. So I started. What was happening was he was kind of like sizing me up on how much I would charge, because the book Moxie that they were working on with penciler Dave McAvoy and inker Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor and I were friends. We're friends on Facebook. I met him a few times because he was also in San Francisco. We became friends, and we started working together. And this was when, let's see, Mike, I know Bill McAvoy was friends with Ethan Van Sciver, who was also friends with Matt Martin, all these guys. They actually did work for Parody Press back then, and there was an imprint called Hall of Heroes. I got to know each one of them independently, because I remember meeting Ethan Van Sciver at a convention, because Don Chin told me that they used to work together, printing books together on Hall of Heroes, and I also inked Matt Martin, and then now I'm making Mike Taylor. But I don't think not Mike Taylor, Bill McAvoy, and I don't think Bill McAvoy is working in comics anymore. After when they were working in comics, they left comics and just started working on a jean, like a denim clothing company called Jinko, Jinco, where they had these really big bell bottom pants. And I remember going to like department stores, and I would see their pants. They weren't making pants. They were actually there to draw designs on the legs of the pants or the back pocket or the butt pocket of the pants and so forth. Let me sign my name first. Denwong. So I was working on Cinder Helena, and at the same time, they started having me work on Moxie. And they gave Mike Taylor, like they stopped using Mike Taylor because Mike Taylor was charging more, and the price that Steven Solowski quoted me was less. So they decided to use me because I was saving them money, and the penciler would Mike Bill McAvoy would get more in his pocket. So I pay less, and then I started inking over him at the same time that I was inking over Leandro on Cinder Helena. And when those book got published, it was good. Like Cinder Helena was a big project at the time for an independent publisher, and like but I did not get paid for it. They didn't pay me for it because they just didn't have the money. I don't know. Like it was a big deal at the time. Like Cinder crossover. It was an intercompany crossover between two independent publishers, and they sold a lot of copies, but they weren't able to pay me. So I saw Steven Zalowski at like another convention, either San Diego Comic Con or WonderCon. And I said, "Are you guys gonna pay me, or what's going on?" He goes, "They can't afford to pay me." And I said, "How about the original art? Like, am I gonna get the original art back?" And he said, "No, we don't have any original art. However, what we can do for payment is, I have some Spawn pages, like some Spawn original art, and in it, I don't know where he got all these Spawn original art. He had like one issue that Greg Capullo penciled and Mark Pennington inked of Spawn. I think it's." Like it was an issue of Spawn. However, Spawn wasn't in it. It was just like a backstory or something. So Steven said, "You can pick one of these pages, and we call that your payment." And then I was a Spawn fan at the time, and then I kind of thought, instead of, it's not like I can make them pay me. Like if they can't pay me, and he's offering me an original page of that great Capullo draw, which was Spawn, I might as well just take it. And he showed me like the stack. Right now, I don't remember how many are in the stack, but I picked one of the pages that had Al Simmons in it. None of the pages had Spawn. It was just Al Simmons, right, in his like army uniform and like that. So I picked a page that was Al Simmons holding a rifle. I think it was issue 17 of Spawn. And I kept that, and I said thank you, and that was my payment, and that was okay. Just so happens that at the same convention, San Diego Comic Con, Todd McFarlane was signing, and at this time he didn't really have to pay for signatures; he was just signing. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get this page and then just walk over to the San Diego Comic Con pavilion on the top, and then just wait in line for maybe 2 hours, and then get Todd McFarlane to sign it. And so I met Todd McFarlane. I think that was the first time I met him in person. And then I showed him the artwork, and I said, "Can you sign this?" He goes, "Wow, this is pretty awesome. I haven't seen this page in a long time." And I said, "Can you sign it? Were you the penciler?" Because I didn't know, like the artwork didn't have his name on it. It just had like artwork and then Spawn and issue number and page number. He goes, "No, this was actually penciled by Greg Capullo," and I was crushed. I thought it was a Todd McFarlane page, and then I said, "Well, if you didn't pencil it. Did you ink it at least so you can sign it?" He goes, "No, I didn't ink this. It was inked by Mark Pennington. This was like a filling issue, a Spawn. But I'll be happy to sign it for you." And he signed it with a gold marker on the bottom. And I said, "Well, if you didn't, if you didn't pencil it and if you didn't ink it, at least you wrote it, right? This is your character." He goes, "No, I didn't write either. Tom Orskowski wrote it." I'm like, "Great, great." Now Tom McFarlane is signing this page that he had nothing to do with it. Besides that, this is his character. But he was nice enough to sign it, and I was crushed. But whatever. I have a Swan page, and I have a Tom McFarlane signature on it. I'm just gonna fast forward a few years and then come back to the independent comic thing because there's like so much fun talking about some of the original art. So after I got the original art signed by Todd McFarlane, I kept it for a good few years. I had a frame. I still have it today. That original art, and I don't think I'm ever gonna sell it because that was probably the first time I had any kind of original art as an artist that was trying to get work and not having any original art myself. Let me see if there's any questions. Refillable, rough Douglas roll. How do you avoid not being paid for work? Okay, that's a really good question. How do you avoid not being paid for work? Now, if you're working with independent publishers or publishers for the first time, the best way to avoid not getting paid when they actually do work is to ask them to pay you half up front, and then when you're done, ask them to pay you the other half later. That is the safest way. Okay, that is by far the safest way. That way, if they pay you half up front and you do the work and they don't pay you the other half, at least you still have the artwork and you got paid half of it already. That's how I learned. I mean, I learned that the hard way because back then I didn't really know anything about that. If you're friends with a publisher and you know that they are able to pay, then you don't have to like ask them for half up front and half later. But when you're doing commissions or when you're doing artwork for a publisher and you don't really know them, it's always good to ask for half up front and then half later. That way you're covered even if they don't pay you. So here's another thing. Like if you're working with a publisher, just ask for half up front, and then when you're done, send them scans, but don't send them high resolution scan. Just send them a little small JPEG that's kind of pixelated, so they can see how the work look. On the computer, they'll see everything nice and clear. And then once you're done, tell them that, okay, I'm done. Can you send me the second half of the payment? And then once they send you the payment, then go ahead and send them the high resolution page. You scan it in high resolution, and then they'll after they pay you. That's the best way. If they don't send you the half payment, then don't send them the high resolution scans. And then they're stuck. They can't print the book. They lost half of the funds. What are they gonna do to cover loss? That they would always pay for half of it if they really want the book to be published. So that's the best way. I hope that answers your question. Hey Keith, how's it going? Thank you for the, I don't know what that's called, like super chat or whatever. This is the first time I ever got that. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Keith is one of my longtime followers and viewers. He shares all my videos. One time I appreciated him so much that I sent him a whole bunch of prints, and I made him do some tic-tac-toes with one of his friends to see who gets what print, and he did a live video. I don't think I ever used that video. Thank you for that, Keith. That was very nice of you. Okay, so this is this character here. I'm going to add some backgrounds. Okay, oh yeah, fast forward to later on with that original art. I'll come back to the independent comic book publishing later. So far, I talked about Immortal Studios, which I work for, Hurricane Entertainment, Diversity Comics. There's and then dipping into Lightning Comics while I'm doing these commissions. Okay, here's this character. I don't know who this character is. So after I got the original artwork, I kept it for years and years and years. And then I started working on, I think I was working on, I don't know, I think I was working with Ron Lim. Yeah, I was working with Ron Lim on a book called Wolverine, Son of Canada. It was one of those projects where where it was kind of like a freebie comic that if you buy so many Frito-Lay potato chips and then send in the UPC logo, that you would get one of these limited numbered comic book. And each of those comic had a like a printed number that was unique to it. Marvel never sent me a comp copy. I did the work. I remember when I was working on this comic book, Marvel contacted me and said, would you be interested in working with Ron Lim on this book? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, Ron Lim lives in like I forget where. I know he was 4 hours away with driving. I know he's 4 hours away because the book was so falling behind, and FedEx couldn't send the stuff on time. And then Marvel said, "Can you go pick it up?" I said, "Sure." We're both in the Bay Area, and I drove to Ron Lim's house, and it took me 4 hours to get there. I drove 4 hours. I didn't know it was that far. Okay, this was before. This was before internet and MapQuest and all that stuff. I had to find the address, and I just drove there, and it was a 4 hour ride. So I've actually been inside Ron Lim's house. I went in there, and he gave me the artwork, and then I said, "Can I use your restroom?" Because it's gonna be a long ride back, and then I remember his house. It was a gated community, and when I walked in, it was like this huge, almost kind of looked like a castle, really high ceilings, stained glass, if I remember correctly, and went there to pick up the artwork, used the restroom, and left. I was there for a good maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes from knocking on the door, using the restroom, and then leaving. So that was kind of fun walking into Ron Lim's home, and I knew who he was. Like he's like Mr. Marvel guy. He does a lot of Marvel stuff, and I was looking inking over him. Anyway, when I got the artwork, when I was done inking it, Marvel asked me to, man, Marvel. I was so good to Marvel, man. Marvel said, "Walden, can you send these to Tom Orskowski, the letterer? He's also in San Francisco." And I go, "Great. What do you want me to do? You want me to FedEx it, or you want me to drive it?" And he goes, "If it's local to you, why don't you just drive it over?" And at the time he lived on somewhere near Mission Street in San Francisco. So I drove to his house, and I remember when I found his house, there was this big. Everyone's address had these little numbers on it, like whatever the address is, and then his house had a big painting of a huge number one on the side of the building. You couldn't miss it. It was like right in the middle of the intersection. So I went in there, and I met Tom Orskowski, the letterer, who also wrote that issue of Spawn, and that page he wrote it. So I brought it there, and I said, "Tom, could you sign this for me?" Tom McFarlane told me that you were the writer. He goes, "Yeah, I remember writing this. Oh, this is kind of nice. Yeah, I'll be happy to sign it for you." So as I handed him pages of the Wolverine Son of Canada pages that Ron Lim drew, he was signing it. And I remember when I was at his house had so many cats, like so many, like 20 something cats or something. It was a lot of cats. They love cats. There was cats everywhere. There was so many cats. Yeah, I've never seen an apartment that had like a house that had so many cats. His wife was Lois Ball Hollis. She was also a letterer, and I met her there for the first time. I think we also did some work together later on. She used to letter a lot of comic books for Dark Horse Comics, and I remember her name in some of the Dark Horse comics. So I met Tom Orskowski, and he signed it, and I gave him the artwork. And then once he was done lettering it, it was like he can just do whatever he want. Like it's up to him to send it back to Marvel. My part is done since I was done inking it. So that is how I got that original artwork. Signed by Tom McFarlane, and also signed by Tom Orskowski. I've yet to see Greg Capullo to get his signature. I met Greg Capullo a long time ago when he first worked on Spawn. He wasn't like the way he looks now. He was kind of like a little skinny guy, and wearing a baseball hat and very quiet. Now he's Greg Capullo, which is like like a metal rock star working on all these books, and he's a really amazing artist. I met him a long time ago when there used to be another alternative press expo, and then he was just there, sitting there, and no one was like getting his autograph. And I saw him. I said, "Can I get your autograph on this action figure?" Because he worked on some Spawn, and then at the time there was some Spawn action figures. And not only did he sign my action figure, he also drew a little head sketch. I still have that action figure somewhere. Very very nice guy. Now when you see Great Capul, he's kind of intimidating looking. Like he looks like a heavy metal rock star, which is good for him. Okay, and then we have this one. Well, now let's go back. Let's go back to Lightning Comics. Lightning Comics was the one who gave me the original art to that Spawn, and I got that all signed and so forth. And then I started working on it, and it did pretty well. Not only did it do pretty well, Lightning Comics decided to go into the foray of creating action figures. Let me see if there's any questions. See, Kai, do you know any current good independent publishers that you would recommend for new artists looking for work? So there's a lot of independent publishers out there. I haven't actually gone to a comic book store in a very long time to see what kind of independent publishers out there. But the best way to look for independent publishers is to actually go to a local comic book store. And I'm going to give you guys a tip if you're an aspiring artist wanting to get your work shown to publishers. Before I had Wizard Magazine. These days there's no Wizard Magazine. So what I recommend is to actually go to a comic book store. And before I would tell students to like grab a piece of paper and a pencil, then go to the new comic section, and then open up the comic book and look at the indicia. Indicia is like when you open up the comic book and inside there's like this little information about issue number, the address of where the publisher is located, trademarks, and all these little tiny words. Like if you look there, you find email addresses, and then you also find addresses. Not only that, you can find out who the publisher is, who's the editor, who's the assistant editor, and so forth. Now, I tell you to look at the most current one because we don't want you to be looking at like older comics because sometimes publishers and editors aren't really working there anymore. But if you look at new releases, those editors are more than likely still there. Okay, so look at new books when you're at a comic book store, and then write down all the information, and then you can even email them, or send a snail mail and send your samples out, and then see if they're interested in looking for an artist to work on. That is the best way. If you know the name of the publishers, you can just always search them up on the internet and see if they have any submissions, like online submissions and so forth. My From my experience, is always easiest to get work if you're emailing the editors as opposed to like sending a snail mail. Sometimes they're nice enough to talk to you, so that helps a lot. Okay, there's no I also, some people, they're always afraid to email publishers. I don't have any problems emailing editors and like assistant editors and so forth, because sometimes you're helping them out. There's so many times that I would send my work to publishers and assistant publishers and so forth, and they'll tell me, this is good timing. We're looking for someone. We don't have anyone in mind, and I just got your email at exactly the right time, and then that's how I got a lot of my work. Have a thick skin, and then don't be afraid of who you're emailing. Just email them, and you'll get work eventually. Okay. You also email them samples and portfolios and stuff. Okay, back to Lightning Comics. So they started making action figures, and they couldn't pay. They paid me with that Spawn piece, and then later on they started giving me action figures. I remember getting Helena action figures. I also got Warrior Nun action figures, Shotgun Mary action figures. All of them, that was, I wasn't getting paid, but it was kind of cool because, like I mentioned in previous podcasts, I worked on Shotgun Mary Shooting Gallery. I also worked on Warrior Nun, and then Lightning Comics. They were making action figures, and they sent me some of the action figures, and it felt kind of nice. Like, I'm a comic book artist. I worked on these characters. It feels like I created these characters, and then now they're sending me action figures. So it's almost like, wow, this character that I worked on is for real now. Like there's actually a comic book. I mean, and there's actually an action figure. So that's like kind of nice. So I didn't really mind if they didn't pay me. Okay, let me see if there's any questions. Answer some of those. I hope that they pay for your mileage. They did not pay for my mileage. I did when Marvel asked me how did it go. I said, yeah, it took me 4 hours to get to Ron Lim's house, and then it took me 4 hours to drive back. And then the editor said, well, had I known that it would take you so long, I wouldn't have withdraw fire here. I wouldn't have had you drive there. I would have had you FedEx there, and that was it. They didn't pay mileage or anything like that. But for me, I was so excited about driving to Ron Lim's house to get to work. Like it didn't really, I didn't really mind the drive. But it was a long ride. It was a long ride. 4 hours there and then 4 hours back. That was pretty much the whole day. Luckily, when I gave the artwork to Tom Borskowski for him to letter, I didn't have to drive. It was only maybe like a 20-minute drive from my place in San Francisco to his place in San Francisco. Okay, now this character, I don't know the name of this character. I'm just going to draw it without sketching it. So that was my that's my interaction with Lightning Comics. And then later, more closer to the future, there was another publisher. They're called Pencil Neck Jack, or something like that. They worked on a comic book called White Lily. This was maybe before the pandemic, maybe 5-6 years ago, and they found me. Actually, let me rewind it back. Before White Lily, well, there's so many independent comic books I worked on. The first San Diego Comic Con I went to, I met a whole bunch of guys in line waiting at the portfolio reveal. It was me and then a few other guys. I'm myself. I'm a real people person. I'm talkative. I like talking to people. So I figure if I'm waiting in line, I might as well just talk to the artist that's standing in line in front of me and talking. Just have chit chat with them. Because if I'm waiting in line for 2 hours, instead of being quiet, I'm just gonna talk to people and see, if they talk back. If they talk back, great. If they don't, no harm, no foul. And some of the artists there, it was I remember Pat Quinn. Pat Quinn was there, and another Pat Quinn right now. I think he's the dean of Savannah SCAD, Savannah College of the Arts or something. He's like an important person there, Pat Quinn. And there was also Kari Andrews. Kari Andrews, he wasn't working on any comics at the time. Now he's like Marvel Comics, big name artist. He also makes movie and so forth. But I met Kari Andrews before he was anyone. He was standing in line in front of me. So I spoke to them during the portfolio review at San Diego Comic Con. I think we were waiting in line for Marvel or something. We shared sample packets. We looked at each other's work, and we kind of critiqued each other's work as well. And I was an inker, and they were both pencilers. And let's see, and I got to know them, and then they contacted me back and said, Walden, we have this group we're called the Writer's Block. Some of you may have heard of the Writer's Block. Writer's Block is like a group of writers. I think it was like Sean Berenice. I'm see if I can remember the name. Sean Berenice, Jareth Grealish, Eric Serminis, and a few more writers. They weren't published writers. They were actually writers that want to get their work published. They want Marvel to notice them so they can get to work. And at the time, it was really, you think it was hard for pencilers to get work? Imagine if you're a writer that's never written anything before. It's even harder to get your script out to publishers for them to look at it. So they had an idea, which was to work together, pay and print their own anthology, and then after printing their own anthology, they would go to comic book conventions and give out that comic book, an anthology. And then they had a few of the artists, Kari Andrew, Pat Quinn, myself as the inker. I think some of the covers before. And we got together every time before there was Facebook, before there was a social media. We just had email, and we had this email chain, and then every morning we would like talk to each other through email, almost like an email group. Like say you're emailing someone, you put everyone in a carbon copy, and then we would just get each other's email, and that was fun. We actually got to know each other really well because of the emails. We talk about the project, we talk about like whatever's happening in the comic book industry and so forth. Kind of like what you guys see on social medias these days, except that we're doing it on email chat. Not even email chat, just email each other. Everyone's just getting the email. So we did the covers, and I got to know Kari Andrews, I got to know Pat Quinn, and oh yeah, Jack Nolan. He was one of the writers, and he was also a letterer for his story that he was doing on the Writer's Block. Okay, it was called like Writer's Block Annual 89 or 99 or oh 09 or something. They didn't really have a title for their annual. It's just something that they printed. It was a big prestige format book, and they would just give that to publishers. And I met Jack Nolan. Jack Nolan, he's a movie actor. He's not like your Tom Cruise. Like, he'll do some acting. He's like a background actor or and things like that. Jack Nolan, we got to know each other, and man, just so much stories that I gotta tell here. Jack Nolan, later on, fast forward, I worked on some of his images for that anthology, and then fast forward like maybe 15 years or something like that, or 15 years or so, he contacted me and said, Walden, you're still working in comics, right? I said, yeah. Well, I'm still acting. I have this friend who's also an actor. He wants to make his own comic book called White Lily, and we were interested to see if you're interested in working on it. We don't have a penciler yet, but if you know of anyone, let us know. So I said, sure. So I called my friend Laval. Laval, he also worked with Immortal Studios. He was one of the artists that he was supposed to work with Immortal Studios, drawing Cinder, but he didn't get the gig. But I kept in touch with him because I thought I was going to be working with him, but I didn't work with him. But then that story will come up a little bit later again. Laval. And I kept in touch with him, and Laval started working on White Lily. I've actually inked like maybe 8 pages, and then I didn't ink it anymore, and they had like some other inker, Dana. I forgot what her last name is. Dana, I can't remember. She was the inker that took over, and then I guess they did okay. So that was another publisher, White Lily, Pencil Jack. They went on to do like 4 issues, and it made a graphic novel and so forth. But I only did like 8 pages. Okay, let me fill this in. Let me sign my name over here. So that was another publisher. And let me see. Now I'm going to go back to Immortal Studios. Immortal Studios. So they decided. Let me see if there's any questions while I'm talking here. I'm actually going to scan right now. I have to look him up. Okay. You actually go to SCAD right now? Yeah. If you go to SCAD, look for Pat Quinn, PATQUINN, and if you talk to him, tell him Walden said hi. Yeah, we're good friends. Before we used to go to San Diego Comic Con, and all of us were like poor artists. We shared one hotel room. It was like maybe 10 artists sharing one hotel room. It was pretty crowded. But now that those are good times. We weren't. I remember Pat Quinn. He would he would go parties and drink alcohol and be so tired. When one time, I went back to the hotel to go to sleep. All of a sudden, I hear the door open. Oh man, I'm tired. Boom, boom. Like all of a sudden, like stuff started falling. I didn't know what that was, but I didn't care what that was because I was so tired. I just want to sleep. Next morning, I found out that Pat Quinn just walked in the door, just fell on the floor, and just started sleeping on the floor where he fell and just slept there all night. And it was the funniest thing. Like every so often, if I hear from him, if I talk to him, we'll talk about that story. It's some of these stories which is kind of fun and memorable, especially your first time going to conventions with all these guys, and then you're sharing a room, and then all these things that happen. When you get older, you talk about that, and it's like reminiscing some of that, and then brings back good times when you see them again. I saw Pat later on at Heroes Con. They live in, I think they live in Savannah School of the Arts or something. Live in they're pretty close. They're pretty close to. Let's see, Heroes Con is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, and then when I go there, oh, another person that was an artist for the Writer's Block was Jack Nolan Woodard. Nolan today he was penciling back then, but today he's a really great colorist. We actually got to work on some Marvel work together on Darth Vader, so that was pretty nice. Nolan Woodard, he's now an exclusive colorist for Marvel. Okay, add some rendering lines over here. Yeah, so that's how I met Jack Nolan, and that's how I got to work on White Lily. White Lily didn't really have an artist, and then they wanted me to be the art director, and then assemble the team. And then I just didn't have the time to work with him. I gave that up and found Dana to take over, and then she became the next assistant at a creative designer and started working with them. I don't know whatever happened to them. I think they had a falling out. Dana, like they were working a good few years together, and then all of a sudden, the time I saw Dana at a convention, she goes, "Yeah, they're really bad people." And then I said, "What? I see you posting on social media that you're all good friends and you're hanging out." Yeah, but it was later until they started joining. What's this thing called? It, who was this group called? I can't remember. Like Ethan Van Sciver is part of the group. What is it called? Comic Skate. Yeah, They said he wanted to join Comic Skate and try to ride the coattails of Comic Skate to get their comic book out there. And I didn't know what Comic Skate was, and I didn't really pay attention to all of that nonsense. But they the yeah, I forgot who's the owner of White Lily. I forgot the name of the person. Anyway, he wanted to write Comic Skate and then try to sell a lot of his books through crowdfunding. And I guess when things changed, Dana didn't really like that, and yeah. So I'm really fuzzy. I don't really know all the detail. When she was telling me, I was like, I wasn't part of it. That's all you guys. Um, thank you for telling me, but it's not like I need to know. So, like that sounds like a you problem, not really a me problem. Doesn't involve me, and that was the end of that. So we're gonna go back to Immortel Studios. Yeah, Kamiskate Kai. That's what it was. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll go back to Immortel Studios. Immortel Studios, which was run by David Hernandez, he decided to give up the publish. He's decided to not work on Cinder anymore, and he was going to sell the property. So Laval's real name, I mean, Laval was his pen name, but Laval's real name was Carlos Davis. He decided to buy Immortel Studios. And I don't really know how much he bought Immortel Studios. Immortel Studios, like the publishing company, as well as the character Cinder. Like if you guys later on decide to look up Cinder, some of you may know the character Cynder. And if you look up Immortel Studios, Immortelle, you may see some of their older work. or you may see some of the new work that Laval tried to get out there with my inks, but was never actually worked out, because it wasn't it just didn't work out, because Laval didn't really have that much money to print the books. In his heart, we really wanted to get the book going. Laval also lived in San Francisco, and I remember going visiting him. He used to work at a store in Pier 39 in San Francisco. This store is called We Be Knives. They sell knives and stuff. They're probably still there. I don't know if they're still there now. I haven't been to Pier 39 in San Francisco in quite some time. But if you ever visit San Francisco, see if you see Pier 39's Weeby Knives. When we were in San Francisco, I told Laval I was still working comics and I was doing Marvel and DC, but because he was in San Francisco, I told Laval, I said, wouldn't it be nice if we created a comic book studio company in San Francisco, like Marvel had. What Marvel was in New York, DC Comics was in Burbank, and so forth. And he said, "Yeah, that would be cool." I said, "Let's do something together." And we would work together on a few pages. He would pencil and I would ink, and then he would try to redesign Cinder, and he would show me, and then I would just give him a critique on to see if he can fix this and change that. And then he appreciated me so much because I was doing this on my own time. I didn't really charge him because we became friends after a while. Not only did we become friends, he also was my minister when I got married. He also officiated my wedding. So that was nice that he can do that. He had the license to get people to get married. So we talked to each other about creating a company in San Francisco. It was an independent company called Cinder. We had our first book solicited, and he wanted to introduce his character, War Dragon. War Dragon kind of looks like the Predator. He had the big head and he had claws, and then his body kind of looked like the Predator. It was a cross between the few. And then the first issue was supposed to spotlight Cinder and War Dragon. That book was solicited in the previews to be like pre-ordered for comic books to order, but when the pre-orders came in, there was not enough orders to get the book printed. So Laval was crushed, and we just never actually printed the book. Not only did we not print the book, I worked on a few issues with him. I didn't charge him, which was okay. I told him that I want to do this together so we can form a company in San Francisco, in Mortel Studios, and he was all for it, but it never worked out. Okay, we every so often we would try again, and then one day Laval texted me. I got this text from him, and the text said, "Walden, in case I don't see you, I want this video to be an official thing that I'm giving you ownership of Cinder and Immortel Studios." I saw that. I didn't understand what that was. Like, I haven't spoke to him for a while. Every so often he would contact me and ask me to go watch like Marvel movies or DC movies, and then I would always be busy, and then I would talk to him every so often on the phone and so forth. And then he wanted to give me 1/3 ownership. So he was the original owner when he bought Immortel Studios. That came with Cinder, and he had a friend. His name was Eric Dove, and then he granted him 1/3 ownership, and then he gave me 1/3 ownership. So I texted him back and I said, "Laval, are you doing okay? You're not dying on me or anything, are you?" And he said, "No, no, no. I just want something to be like on video as proof that if I'm ever like if something ever happens, you have 1/3 ownership of Cinder." And I go, "Okay, great, but I don't know if if I can ever do anything with Cinder. I mean, I would like to help you get Cinder started as much as I can, and that'll help you do free work because you're a good friend of mine." And great, so far that was okay. And then fast forward like maybe 7 years later, Laval passed away. So he passed away I saw on Facebook, Eric Dove texted me and said, I don't know if you heard, but Laval passed away. Laval was working on White Lily at the time. Like I found Laval to be the penciler of White Lilies, and then he was so happy that he got comic book work because he was trying and trying and trying. He wasn't making it, and he wanted to get his Cinder project rolling, and he wasn't making it. I was able to help him get that project with White Lily, and he was so happy. He was so happy. So his dreams of being a comic book artist was fulfilled, but then he passed away. I think he passed away of cancer or something. And then I found out the news when Eric Dove messaged me on social media and said, Laval's not around anymore. We need to do something about the Cinder. And I go, oh, like I was in shock. I couldn't believe that Laval's not around because he was always around. Even today, if I ever go to Pier 39, and if I see that Weeby Knives, like I'll think of Laval. Okay, actually, not even if I think of not even if I not only do I think of Laval if I pass Weeping Knives, when I think of Pier 39, I'm already thinking about Laval because that was where I met Laval over and over again. I would anytime I would go to Pier 39, I would just go in the store without him knowing, and we would just go in and chit chat. We worked on a Cinder War Dragon print together. He printed that into like a big billboard. It was almost like how big? I would say maybe 8 feet by 24 feet. It was wide, and then they had that displayed in the store, and it had Laval's signature on it, and it had my signature on it. And then when people go in there, they would see my name really big in the store. It was like a big mural behind the store. It was really really nice. So Laval passed away, and Eric Dove contacted me and said we need to do something about Cinder. And I go, yeah, what would you like to do? And he does not know anything about publishing. He's not a like a comic book artist. He's not a comic book writer. He was a friend of Laval, and Laval was the one who was supposed to be doing everything. I don't. I think it was his cousin or something. I'm not really sure. And I said, yeah, what would you like to do? Yeah, we see if you can get Cinder going and rolling again, and so we can get like some like get the book rolling, and then like I don't know, get it printed so we can make money from it. I just sure. Like I don't know how to do it. Like Laval was the person who owns that, and then Eric said, now, Laval, since Laval's not around, you're half owner of Cinder, and then I'm the other half. And I said, well, I yeah, this is all like what you say and what he said. There was never actually any kind of paperwork. He goes, yeah, but I don't know what to do with Cinder. Laval's the one who bought it, and then he made that video, and then now like it's just you and me left, and you're the only one active in comics. And I said, I don't know. Let me find out what I can do. So I contacted David Hernandez, the original owner of Cinder from Immortal Studios, and I said, hey, David, I don't know if you heard, but Laval passed away, and this is through Messenger on Facebook. He goes, "What?" And he was in shock. Like he was texting me. I could tell he was in shock based on the pauses and the slow responses. And he goes, "No wonder why he hasn't responded to me when I'm messaging him on social media." And I said, "Yeah, he passed away maybe a good few months ago. I haven't heard from him until Eric Dove sent me." You go, "Who's Eric Dove?" I think Eric is his cousin. And he goes, "I don't know." Like later on, David Hernandez told me that he sold Immortel Studio to Laval for like maybe $500, the whole company and all the rights, because he didn't want to work on it anymore. And then he told David Hernandez told me that there was other printing companies or publishers that want to bring Cinder back, but he didn't own the rights to Cinder anymore. So he was going to contact Laval and have Laval talk to them and see if they wanted to like reprint some of the comic books and get paid for it. I said, yeah, sure, sure. Do you want to talk to Eric Dove to see you guys can do something about reprinting rights. And David Hernandez said, I still have all the original files to all the comics books that they've done. Maybe they can do reprints of the work that they've done, and then that they have done, and then all the new stuff, whatever's new, is like a different licensing or something. I said, sure. Why don't you speak with Eric Dove and see what would happen? So I think they spoke to each other, and I messaged Eric Dove and I say, did David Hernandez get in touch with you? And he said yes, and everything's all good. And I haven't heard since, so I don't really know what else is happening after that. Um, they say that I'm 1/3 ownership, but there's really like all of that's up in the air. I don't really know what's going on. So we'll see what happens about that. So that was. White Lily. No, I'm sorry. That was Immortal Studios. There's a long history of Immortal Studios. I miss Laval. I I love that guy. He was like a big part of my comic book working in comics. He called me, texted me. He's just a friend. He officiated my wedding, and my wife and I will always remember him. Not only that, he one of the wedding gifts that he gave us was a samurai sword. It was two samurai sword. I still have that samurai sword displayed in my living room. It was two swords, and it was one of the nice swords. It was. He told me that this sword isn't just like a random sword. It's actually handmade. It's not like a machine made where there's like these dye machines. He even gave me these little cleaning stuff to keep it clean and stuff. He because he worked at the knife store, I guess he had access to all these knives and swords and all that fun stuff. Let me sign my name. Yeah, so those of you who know of these characters, I guess comment down below on the video description. So I have three more. How many more commissions? Oh, six more. Okay, so I have this character. Let me close this. What is this? A scarecrow? Okay, I have to draw all these vertical. Let me see if there's any questions as I'm drawing this. No questions so far. Okay, now I'm going to fast forward to working at Viz Media. So Viz Media, as most of you know, they publish manga. And Leandro, he was working at Viz Media at the time, like a freelancer, and they're located in San Francisco. Okay, he contacted me one day and said, Walden, I'm. Would you be interested in taking over my freelance gig in at Viz? And I go, what do you mean freelance gig? And at this time, I was already doing comic books, drawing, inking comic books for Marvel and DC and all these other independent publishers and so forth. And he goes, yeah, I go to Viz. They're located in San Francisco. And I go, what? They're located in San Francisco? I know Viz was located in San Francisco. This was when Viz was printing floppy comic books. It wasn't all those big graphic novels. It was these small floppy comic books like My, the Psychic Girl, Crying Freeman, Rama One Half, and books like that. Okay, and each of the book was like maybe 20, 32 pages, like really small ones. So this was a long time ago. And he said, I'm not going to be working at Viz anymore because I'm going to be moving. I just graduated from Academy of Art, and they're going to hire me to be a art instructor because I need to work there. And I said, sure, let me know what's going on, like what I need to do. Oh, no, just go there. Maybe bring some of your comic books that you worked on and show it to them, and then maybe they'll hire you. Look for this person. Her name is Aneta Roman, and then maybe she'll hire you. So I went to Viz Media. It was like on Brandon Street in San Francisco. It was this big building which didn't have any signs. You would never know that that's Viz Media. It was like a warehouse. It was really just like a warehouse, and then just a big garage door, no windows. It was just a published comic book company over there. I'm gonna draw the hand over here. Draw the hand like this. Bring this hand and bring this one closer. There we go. And then here's the arm, change it up a little bit. Wouldn't have to follow it exactly. And I go to Viz Media, and then one of the side doors open. Imagine like this warehouse where you have a huge garage door that opens up, and then like a big trailer would just drive in. That's how big the huge garage door. And on the side, there was a smaller door. That door opened, and Aneta opened the door. I think this is supposed to be a scarecrow. Yeah, so I'm gonna make the other hand. Yeah, that is a scarecrow. I think it's a scarecrow. Yeah, I'm not gonna read the description. I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna put the other hand maybe here. Let me finish drawing this hand, this hand, this hand, and this finger here. Okay, and then there's the other arm, this like this. Okay. So for right now, I'm just gonna go on my own and then just use the reference photo as just a reference. And then I don't know how the bottom is gonna look, so I'm just gonna sign my name right across the bottom, so I don't have to draw what was on the bottom, and then just start putting in the details. So I met with Aneta, and I said, "Yeah, I'm Walden. Leandro told me to." So yeah, so my stories, there's all these people that are connected from one thing to another. Leandro, again, he was the artist that we worked on together for Immortal Studios, one of the first Cinder that we worked on. We also worked on the crossover with Lightning Comics and Immortal Studios, which was Cinder Helena. We also later on did some more work. But before I talk about the last independent book, well, not so much independent. Before we talked about that one, I want to talk about how I started freelancing with Viz and how we landed on that other book. So Leandro said he's leaving and starting to teach at the Academy of Art University, and asked me if I wanted to work at Viz. I said sure. So I went to the interview, and all I had was a few of my comic books, like published comic books that I've done for Marvel and DC and so forth. I met up with Aneta, and I said, "Yeah, Leandro told me that you guys need help with something, or you guys are hiring." I didn't even know what I was applying for. I just went there because Leandro said, "All you're gonna be doing is like some comic book work," and that's all I cared about. Like if it's comic book work, I'm all for it. Do some noodling and detail. So I spoke with Neta. He looked at my comic books and he goes, "Great." You know, he didn't even keep the comic books. He just let me keep it. I brought it. I was like a kid. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had those comic books inside a folder that had sleeves, and each of the sleeve have a comic book inside. It wasn't even in a box or whatever or stacked up or anything. I showed it to her. Goes, "Well, I don't know what kind of interview we're doing, but Leandro told me that you're coming, so I'm interviewing you. But if you want the job, you got it." And I go, "Great. What do you need me to do? When do I start?" I go, "You want to start now?" And he'll go, "Okay." So the day I went for the interview, after I showed him the comic, he didn't really ask me about my background or anything. He just knew that I worked in comics. He did hire me. So no, she hired me, and then to hire me, and I started doing pagination. So for those of you who don't know what pagination is, imagine comic books that had page numbers on the bottom of the book. So Annette had me do where I would take these sheets of sticker paper, and I would use a computer and type in pages 1 to 30 or whatever, print that out on that sticker paper, almost like address labels, and I would cut these little pieces of paper to little rectangles, and I would stick it to the bottom of their stats. Viz Media didn't have any original artwork. Most of the artwork was like on stats, like this plastic paper film, and my role there was to put page numbers there. And at the time, comic books that Viz Media was making, they were printed left to right, which means read backwards. And I was also the guy that went in there and put all these read this way signs. So like if you look at some of the older mangas, because people didn't know how to read is right to left backwards, I would go in there and start putting in all these little arrows that says read this way. These newer mangas doesn't have it because most readers are pretty savvy these days. They know that mangas are automatically read what right to left. But back then, people didn't know, so they would put these little arrows going that direction, and also page numbers. I would put page numbers. I did all of that for a good while, and then later on, when they needed art touch-ups, and they knew I was an artist, they started having me do artwork touch-ups. Artwork touch-ups where I would go in there and like some, for example, if artwork was missing because they had to remove some of the Japanese text, they had me redraw it. And I was doing that by hand on stats. I would maybe get like not so much microns. They were pins like these little pins because that's all they had. I would white out these plastic stat paper that had artwork, and then I would redraw some of the stuff around the English special effects. So they some of the letters would remove the Japanese and put in the English, but then they some of the letters, they're not really artists, so they don't know how to do art touch-ups, and they had me do some art touch-ups, and then I would just touch up those letters work to make it look more real. So if you can imagine, Japanese texts are read from top to bottom, and English is read left to right. So when Japanese text is removed, what a letter would do was they would just take the English text, cover up the original Japanese, and they would use whiteout and just kind of like white out around that. And then some of them don't know how to draw, so it was kind of yucky. So letters would actually get stats and work on that. So when things look kind of off, I would go in there and fix it. I remember at the time they were working on this magazine called Shonen Jump, and the person that I was working with, Jason Thompson, he was the editor in chief of Shonen Jump, and he said the Shonen Jump is going to be the next biggest thing ever for manga. And I go, great. What do you need me to do? and like I didn't know what he meant at the time, but today manga Shonen Jump is like one. He was right. It is one of the biggest mangas out there. So fast forward, and many fast forwards later, Aneta decided to do an original comic book for Viz. So most of the Viz were done with like I guess remade comics from Japan. So they decided they wanted to do like an original comic book that was created here by US, and that book is called One World Manga. It was almost the same size as these digest size manga that you see these days, but it would be artwork that would be completely new. And Aneta knew I was an artist already, and he asked me, Walden, do you know anyone that would be interested in penciling this book and then you ink it because we all know that you're an inker. And I said, sure. Do you remember Leandro? I said, oh yeah, Leandro. Let's see if he's interested. So we contact up Leandro, and Leandro was the penciler for One World Manga. So that was the first manga book that Viz ever published. That was an original comic book. Digest size. We went on to make 3 volumes, and Neto was the writer. Leandro was the penciler, and I was the inker. No colors, and I don't know who was the letterer. Maybe I lettered. I can't remember. I know that when we were at Viz, Annette and I, we would stay up. We would stay really late hours to get the work done, like right before printing. And this was like 11 p.m. at night, and I was at the office at the Viz, and then we would just sit together and he goes, let's change this, let's change that, let's fix this. And like, I didn't mind. Like, I enjoy working at Viz. So we did a lot of that in the office together, and that was good times. If I spoke to Annette today, she probably won't remember this because this was so long ago. So Leandro got to work on that, and that was all the independent books that I worked on. So aside from the last podcast that I spoke about today, we talked about Lightning Comics, Pencil Jack Comics, Immortal Studios, Hurricane Entertainment, Diversity Comics, and One World Manga for Viz. I won't call Viz an independent publisher. Viz is one of the largest publishers today. I would say the biggest publishers, bigger than Marvel and DC these days. They publish manga, so it's a different category, but the books outsells more than Marvel and DC. Let me see if there's any questions. See, hey Walden, hope you are doing okay. Hey Emilio, how's it going? Good to see you here. Hi IP2 NIER. I don't know what that means. Okay, so that's this drawing. I have a few drawing. I'm gonna finish all these. I think there's one, two. I have five more commissions to go, and I'm gonna continue talking in this podcast about independent work while I try to finish all these up. A little bit tricky when I'm drawing. When I'm inking, I'm more on automatic. When I'm drawing, there's a little bit of a thinking process. But I spoke all about independent work that I can talk about. I may have exhausted all my independent comic talking. So I guess I can talk about how started doing. Oh yeah, okay. Here's what we can do. Talk about when I was working on Stargate, the publisher, the independent publisher that I was working on the previous. We should talk about this. I remember I was working at the bank while I was working on Stargate for Entity Comics, and I wanted to learn how to use a brush, and at the time I was okay at using the crow quill, but I started using the brush and I hated using the brush. I really hate it. I made such a mess. The artwork, if you Google up Walden Wong Stargate, you'll probably see some of those ugly artwork. I'm not really proud of it. It's really messy, and that was over Penciler Leandro's work. I was trying to learn how to use a brush because I bought a brush, and I just didn't. I just wasn't really able to control the brush really that well. So there was a lot of mistakes. Line weights, all of that is out the door. Holding lines, all of that's out the door. Interior lines, texture. It was just. I was almost like tracing. I was really just tracing because I really didn't know how to use a brush. Using a quill is a different monster than using a brush. I know how to use a brush today. I prefer a brush more over the ink over the quill because the brush holds more ink longer. Okay, I'm gonna go here and draw this chin, and then here's the mouth, here's the nose, we have the eyes, and then the forehead. Okay, so the few issues, I think that was Stargate, and then when I sent that to Don Chin, the publisher for Entity Comics, he didn't say anything. He thought it was pretty good. I remember inking that when I was working at the bank during my break, and then in the bank there would be a security guy. He would just stand there all day like security for the bank, and I would just do it during my break. And then he would say, "Wow, Walden, you're gonna make it big someday. You're gonna be a professional artist." A lot of times I brought work when I was working at the bank as a teller, or actually I should tell you guys what I did when I worked at the bank. I worked at the bank as a teller. I worked at the bank as a personal banker. I also worked at the bank as a customer service rep. I worked for the cash vault, where if you can imagine all those armored car carriers. Let me make this a little bit smaller. There goes that a little wish mob. All those armored car carriers that you see driving on the street. What they do is they will deliver bags of money to like this brick building, and they would process the money and then deposit it. Those are called cash vaults. Okay, cash vault is where is literally like a bank's bank. Okay, not only so I was working with Wells Fargo. Not only were they taking bags of money from Wells Fargo Bank, they will also take money from Bank of America or like Citibank, because they didn't have any cash vault in San Francisco, so they would deposit their money through Wells Fargo Bank, and a lot of like companies, like local companies and shops like Applebee's or McDonald's or whatever, they would also deposit money through armored car carriers. So sometimes you'll see armored car carriers picking up bags of money from stores. That's what's happening. I remember those jobs. It was kind of scary. It was really scary. Going in to work, I would have to go through two metal detectors and two guards, and I had to show them my lunch because they were afraid that I would bring stuff inside. And then when I leave, I would have to show them my empty lunchbox because they were afraid that I would be taking money out of the vault. And if you're processing money and you drop money, I remember you had to scream, "Money on the floor." like that. But I wasn't really like a money like counter or anything like that or processor. I was actually working at the cash vault as a customer service rep, where I would actually call customers and or banks or different restaurants or whatever stores, and tell them that, oh, the bag of money that you deposit is off balance, you're short by this much. And then after I call them and tell them that we were short, they would just yell at me. And that was part of my job, is just to get yelled at, let people get yelled at. And some people were okay. They didn't really yell at me. They would say, okay, if what you say is if what you say is missing, is missing. Sometimes if there's extra money, I would call them and I would tell them that they have extra money, and they would be really happy. I've also had times where I know this is not related to banking, but it will come back to it. Okay. Um, I would tell them that, oh, someone left a wedding ring inside this bag of money. Does it belong to you guys? Oh yeah, that's my wedding ring. When I put money in there, I lost my wedding ring. So that things like that does happen. Sometimes a worker who's inside, who's counting some of the bags of money, they forget that there's money in the bag. They only grab whatever they can grab, and there's still like maybe $5,000 in there, and they throw in a garbage can. And part of our job is to dig through the garbage, because the cash vault, they don't throw the garbage away until like 3 months later. The garbage is already like paperwork garbage. It's not like there's food on the. You're not supposed to have food into the cash vault. You can only eat in the kitchen. Okay, and that was a job where it was okay. I mean, it wasn't really like my passion. Just being someone who would call people so I can get yelled at. But I that's how I developed like a tough skin, and not be afraid to talk to people. And so I later on went to comic convention, and when there's all these people, like, they're busy, and then that's how I just developed that thick skin, being able to like not worry about rejection and stuff. So when I was working at the bank, I remember bringing my artwork to the bank and doing it during lunch. I would do that like for many years. Like even when I got work as a for Marvel and DC, and especially when I was working on independent books, I wasn't really working for the large publishers at the time. And I remember all these people, they would just see me draw, and that's all I would do. Like I didn't do anything else. I didn't like play games or play with my phone or anything like that. I would just sit there in the lunchroom in my 1 hour break, and I would just work on my samples, or I would draw. And I remember all these people saying, "Yeah, one of these days you'll make it big." And I can, they're probably jokingly saying that to me. They're saying, "One of these days you'll make it big, and maybe you'll be the next artist that worked on Calvin and the Hobbes." And I can always say that I knew you win. And they would say that to me because I was just so focused on doing artwork. They didn't know what I was doing. They just knew that I was doodling and I was drawing, and that happened a lot. When I was a bank teller, that happened. I went from branch to branch, and that happened. And everyone, I don't know if their way of like encouraging me, or kind of like just saying like good luck to you and see what happens. So when I started working for Marvel and DC, I was still working at the bank. I didn't quit the bank. I went from full time into part time. So I was customer service I was working in the bank for maybe 3-4 hours a day, doing telephone calls to get yelled at. And there, this one's done. I'm gonna sign my name. And at the same time, I would just call call people and get yelled at, and I would be drawing at the same time. ALD. And I did the customer service thing for maybe good like 4 years. I remember I quit the bank on my 10-year anniversary. This is a funny story. Let me see if there's any questions first. Uh, any comic books you're looking forward to, independent or not? Actually, right now, Kai asked me if there's any comic book I'm looking forward to. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Mark Silvestri's book on Batman. That is one of the books that I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm not going to buy the individual. I'm going to wait and buy all that once it comes out. I'm also looking forward to Frank Miller's Ronin 2 book. That one's done in black and white, and Philip Tan is the penciler on that, and David Herekes is the inker. I work with Dave Philip Tan. He does a really good work. Oh man, these characters are all horizontal, and I need to draw them vertical. I need to figure out how to do this. Okay, I'm just gonna draw one and then work my way, maybe a different background. So I'm looking forward to those books. So when it comes out in trade paperback, and I'm gonna buy those. But I've seen snippets of it, so we'll see. And then Spawn, I like Brett Booth's Spawn. I think he's doing a good job. I also worked with Brett Booth before on a book for the Dabble Brothers, and Dabble Brothers was the publisher. Oh, there you go. There was another independent company that I forgot to talk about. But for Dabble Brothers, I only did one issue, which was just one cover. That was inking over Brett Brooks. He's a really good artist. He's working on Spawn right now, and he's working on a lot of stuff. He used to be one of the image artists that worked on Blacklash. Very, very nice. I met him a few times at a convention where we would just bump into each other at the elevators and just say hello. He's a quiet guy. I don't know if he knew me or he knew of me or whatever, but he's a really nice guy. I worked with him before. Yeah, let me see what else. Yeah, those are the two books that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, so I remember at the bank, so I was on my 10-year anniversary at the bank, and I was doing a part-time thing, and I remember seeing one of my coworkers. He had this little award, like this little glass award, happy 10-year anniversary, you made it, and he got an award. And then I went on to become on my 10-year anniversary, but except I wasn't working. I wasn't working. Maybe he was working at the same location for all these years, but I was jumping around from branch to branch to branch. I think I went to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different branches. That's how we would get pay increases, like going from branch to branch. So you would get a raise, and then I also did some internal work for the cash vault, and all of that I did 10 years of work. And I never got an award. And I said, you know what, I'm going to quit the bank. This is the perfect time to quit the bank because my comic book work is starting to become like a lot, where I'm not getting enough sleep. Like I think I should start sleeping. I was young at the time, and I was able to do a lot of work and not sleep that much. I remember during my working at the bank, I would work in comics and only sleep maybe every 3 days, just so I can get all the deadlines done, and then also work at the bank. Because the bank also gave me benefits when I was working full time, health insurance, medical, dental. But as a freelance comic book artist, you don't really get any of that. You have to pay for that on your own. But when I decided to become a part-time working at the bank, I just didn't have that benefit. So the risk of leaving was a little bit less, because I already gave up the all of that benefit. So on my 10-year anniversary, I decided to quit. Okay, once I quit, I had a childhood friend, who worked at the bank as a bank manager, and he asked me, "Well, Walden, would you like to work at my branch as an hourly? So just come in once a week on a Saturday." And I said, "Sure. I guess I can come once a week on Saturday and do some inking in the lunchroom, in like for an hour or something." And that was okay. I did that for maybe just 4 months, and then I just said, you know what, this comic book thing is really taking off. I think I'm just gonna work in comics full time now. So I quit the bank completely and started doing comic books full time. But it was exciting. I met a lot of friends, and all the friends who were tellers. I was giving them comic books, like copies that I was working on. So every time I would get comic books, I would just give to them. Or I would give them some. Here's another good story. I worked on More Than Mortal, and I gave some of the Wells Fargo people some of the original artwork to More Than Mortal, and like they were happy, they were excited, but then they weren't really comic book readers. They were just like bankers and stuff. So I gave it to them. They said, "Oh, this is so nice. I'll keep it forever." I remember even framing some of the artwork. And then fast forward to maybe 15 years after I left the bank, somebody online contacted me and said, "Hey, Walden," he contacted me through my website and asked, "Did you work on this? Like, I saw this at Goodwill." And I go, "What do you mean Goodwill?" So he showed me the picture of the artwork that he found, and it was a More Than Mortal page that I worked on with Steve Furco for Liar Comics. That page was a little bit like, I guess someone spilled water into the frame. That frame was actually the frame that I framed up to give to my coworker at to give to my coworker that worked at the bank. Now, this is what I'm talking about, everyone. Like, if you give artwork to people and you give it to them for free, they don't really like value it. But if you charge a certain dollar amount, they'll value your artwork. So I was giving, when I was leaving the bank, I was giving artwork to like all these coworkers, framing them, and then they will say they will keep it forever. And all of a sudden, it shows up in Goodwill or some kind of donation store. It shows up somewhere else, and then other people find it. And then, luckily, it was a comic book artist that would find it, and then they would take care of it and treasure it a little bit more. So it's funny how that came up. So some of the bankers, they decided they don't want my artwork anymore. They don't care about Walden anymore. They're just gonna throw it away, and then all of a sudden, someone else who collects comic books finds it, and then contacts me back. So I don't remember which person I gave the artwork to, but I'm glad that someone else who loves comic books found it. Actually, you know what? Thinking back, I remember that person who found this said he actually goes to Goodwill to buy all these old stuff to see if there's any value into it, and then he resells it on eBay. So I did tell him that I am the artist. It's really my work. And he go, "Wow, this is pretty awesome. I may keep this." So I don't know if he's gonna resell it or if he's gonna like keep it himself. Yeah, so I haven't really kept in touch with any of my Wells Fargo bank people that I knew. Every so often, maybe one or two of them would pop up on my social media, and they would say happy birthday, and then we would chit chat for a little bit, and then that would be the end of it. But working in the bank and doing comics at the same time, a lot of people just saw me as someone who just wanted to draw as opposed to someone who's already drawing. And this is when I was already working in comics. The idea of a professional artist working at a bank didn't dawn to them, but I was already working at like all these publishers at the same time. Yeah, so that's my interest into working in. That's all the I think that's all the independent publishers that I work with. Let me see if there's any questions right now. Let's get it. Can we get closer to the art? Sure. Let me move closer to the artwork. I'm going to move over to the reference photo because we don't need the reference photo. See, Silvestri book is epic. No spoilers. Yeah, I like Mark Silvestri's work. One of my inky samples that I started showing independent publishers was a darkness piece that I inked. It was a darkness piece originally inked by Matt Banning, and I remember buying that same comic book cover, buying that same comic book artwork, and I would just look at the artwork and then start mimicking every line. I remember showing that to Mark Silvestri, and he liked it. Man, I don't know if you guys ever met Mark Silvestri, but he's a tall guy. I met him at a panel, and then I showed him my work. He asked me to go back to the booth with him and showed him my work, and then he kept my portfolio. And he also showed it to the editor, who was Sonia M. Sonia M also already knew who I was. So when Mark Silvestri said, give Walden work, we were already working. Because I actually showed him that piece just to see what kind of critique he would give me. I remember inking a Mephisto piece that he inked. I call those my magnificent seven because I remember showing 7 portfolio pieces to different people, and those were the artwork that actually got me the work in independent comic books, and later on also Marvel and DC. Mark Silvestri is a good artist. Frank Miller, I remember seeing Frank Miller during when I was in WonderCon. He was promoting. I think he was promoting Daredevil or something. I can't remember. He was this young guy. I remember seeing him there. He was like taking a break from the convention outside smoking. And he was talking to like another artist, and I thought, you know, what, should I say hi or should I just leave him alone? Probably just leave him alone. This young guy smoking. He doesn't look like how he looks like now. He was more healthier. But I remember that was when he was wearing all black, and no doubt that was Frank Miller. So I met, I didn't really talk to him, but I just saw him from a distance, and then I thought, oh, that's Frank Miller. Okay, I'm gonna go in here and add some more details. See, let me see. Oh, there's some more questions. Can we get closer to the art? That's so disrespectful. I wish more people cared about artwork, especially comic book manga work, because that takes a lot of skill and time. Yeah, I guess like I said in my previous podcast, if you ever do commissions, it's always nice to charge. That way, your artwork won't get thrown away. I've seen my artwork get thrown away. I've seen my artwork get like trashed in the garbage can, or like taped to the wall, or like put in storage and then be forgotten, and that's okay. I mean, if you give work to someone or if you sell work to someone, that's theirs. But if I do know that if someone buys artwork, they value it more. I remember I used to give artwork away and no one really cares about it, and then people just maybe they'll throw it away. One time I did an art show, and actually, Viz Media, they actually did an art show, and I was freelancing for them. And they said, "Walden, would you like to put in some of your artwork? So if people were gonna buy it, you can." Actually, it wasn't Viz Media; it was one of the Viz workers that worked there, and they were running an exhibition. They asked me if I wanted to submit work. So it was, but a lot of Viz Media workers, they also submitted their work. So I submitted two artwork. It was framed. Oh yeah, it wasn't Viz. It was one of the workers, Lydia, I think her name was. She would be running art exhibitions. I think she stopped working at Viz already, and then she remembers that I used to be an artist, and then she contacted me, asked me if I would to submit work, and then just frame it up and just put it in an art show, and they were going to have an art exhibition, and then I was there. And then someone bought some of my two of my original artwork. One of them was the cover to New Warriors, and I remember charging very little for it. I only put it down $100. It was a cover that was penciled by Derek Robertson and inked by myself for New Warriors. I think it was New Warriors number 7. I can't remember. I think that was the number. And then it was also an interior page of the same character where they're kissing. So someone liked it, and they said, "I want to buy both of them." And I was like, "Wow." I think that was the first time I've ever sold comic book artwork at an art exhibition. That was it. And two people, they were a couple that was gonna get married, and they wanted to design their house. I think her name was. Let me see if I remember. I think it was Megan. I think her name was Megan. Yeah. Well, anyway, she came up to me and said, "Walden, I really like this work. We're gonna get married, and then I want this artwork to be framed next to my bed on this side, and then the other artwork framed on the bed on the other side, next to the bed on the other side, and because both these characters are kissing each other and they're in love." The cover was where New Warriors. Two of the New Warriors character that Derek Robertson drew, and they were about to kiss each other. And on the background, there's like a big heart, and I think she liked it, and I sold it. But thinking back now, like with Derek Robertson's artwork, that artwork's probably worth a lot more than the $100 that I sold it. I didn't know how to price original artwork back then, but Derek Robertson is the artist that created The Boys. He's also the artist that worked on Transmetropolitan. So his work is in demand. I don't know, not so much on my work. Okay, let me make in some of this detail, sign my name. Okay, and maybe add some more details here. Let me see if there's any other questions that I can answer. Okay, good. I'm going to work on the next commission. 3 more pieces. This one's creepy. This character, I don't know who that is. So 3 more commissions to go before the live stream ends today. I'm going to try to talk more independent work. I think that's all the independent work. I think I'm all out of independent work to talk about, unless you guys have questions about some of my independent work. Yeah, so I did independent work while I'm also working for Marvel and DC, and I did that on purpose. Because I really wanted to learn. It wasn't about what publisher I was working for, more so that I wanted to learn from different publishers. Because every publisher would do things differently. They like the artwork differently, and I would send my independent works to some of the Marvel editors and Marvel publishers, and then they would look at it and see if they like the work, and then I would learn that way. Because when I was growing up, there's no such thing as a comic book art school. I didn't go to an art school myself. I actually went to San Francisco State University and got a degree in business marketing. But for me to learn was for was to go to comic book conventions, show them what I'm currently working on. Don't tell them that I'm actually a published artist, and ask them if they would give me a critique. I did that for a good 5 years, even when I became a professional artist for the bigger companies and smaller companies. Like again, I some people would tell me I'm not ready, even though I was already working for the bigger publishers, and then some people would say, "Oh, you're good. You should be getting work." I just didn't tell them that I was working. And back then, nobody really knew who I was because I was new in the comic book industry. I mean, today they probably, if they see my name, they'll probably remember my name or recognize my name from somewhere. But back then, like I can go to any artist in Artist Alley, they'll look at my work, and if they haven't bought that comic book, they won't know who I am. And that was kind of like, it was okay. I didn't really want name recognition. I just wanted to learn more, because even today I've been working in comics for so long that any opportunity I can learn, I'm all for it. I'm never the person that was settle and be done with artwork and think I've made it. Like there's always other things to learn as you go older. Always evolve as an artist. Don't just settle as a comic book artist or any kind of artist. It's really important that you always learn. I'll also watch different YouTube videos, or if I'm talking to artist friends, when they talk about certain things, I'll also want to learn what they're talking about. Don't stop yourself from only learning one form of artwork. Learn as many forms of artwork as you can. It doesn't matter if you're studying American comics, Marvel comics, DC comics. It doesn't matter if you're studying manga or if you're studying cartoons on TV, or like anything like that. Art is art, and it's always best to be able to study as many different kind of artwork as you can, because that's how you grow. Sometimes I'll go to a museum, and then I'll just stand there for hours on end studying, trying to figure out what Picasso did to what are his strokes to do the artwork, or like what Michelangelo did in carving his sculptures and so forth. Or like I'll look at Salvador Dali's artwork and think to myself, why did he draw that clock that way instead of this way? Why did he have to use a spoon? Why does he have to hold a spoon to fall asleep, and then have the spoon fall to wake himself up from sleeping, so he remembers his dreams? Which makes sense. Like sometimes you're dreaming and then you're falling asleep, and then when you wake up, like give that half an hour later, you're not going to remember anything. Like some people don't remember the dreams. So I would look at people's artwork and then study it and then think of things like that. If I'm not studying artwork, I would look at other people's building structures, or if they're doing construction, I'll look at what they built and try to figure out why they're doing it that way. There has to be a reason why. How do I incorporate that into my artwork? If I'm looking at building, I would try to think, how would I ink that with a repeatograph? What kind of stencils would I use? How would I go and make that look real? How many lines are in there? So I'm always constantly studying artwork. Even when I'm not drawing, my brain is actively trying to study like artwork. Like if I'm on public transportation, I'll look at those ads and the billboards, the the ads on public transportation, and I'll see some of the artwork, and I'm thinking, why did they draw that way? Like, what made them do that? Like, my mind is constantly thinking about art. I was talking to someone, a photographer, and I was telling him how my process of artwork and how sometimes I see artwork in a certain way, and then he was telling me, yeah, when I go through life, I think about what shutter speed to put that in. Even though if I'm not carrying a camera, what f-stop, what lens that he can be using in order to take that certain thing, a certain camera angle. And then I think with my mind, I'm kind of the same way, but except I'm thinking about it with artwork instead. Let me see if there's any other questions. Let's see. Thank you. Oh, speaking of The Boys, I just finished the TV series about a month ago. It was really good. I couldn't get into the comic book for some reason. So The Boys, I almost became the anchor on The Boys. And The Boys was, I think it was for DC Comics. We'll just call this an independent comic book, so I can also put this story in there. Derek Robinson, we worked together on New Warriors, a few covers, and we also worked on over on Valiant Comics. We also worked on I think it was Harbinger. Was it Harbinger? Yeah, it was Harbinger. I can't remember if it was Harbinger. We worked on one issue, and I inked over Derek Robinson on that. Let me sign my name first. I have to stop talking when I sign my name because I have to make sure I spell my name correctly. Because in my brain, I spell my name. Oh no, there's the next thing I'm going to draw is this one. Okay, I'm going to grab another sketch card, and after two more sketch cards, that's the end of this podcast. If those of you who are watching this podcast, if you enjoy this, please hit the like button so it'll help with this channel. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Share, comment down below because once this air is going to be out there, please comment down below so more people can see this video. I have a Patreon page. For those of you who enjoy this video, here's my Patreon. It's patreon.com/WaldenWongArt. And I also have a website, waldenwongart.com, where you can learn more about me with my work in Marvel and DC, Image Comics, DC Comics, Viz Media, and all that good stuff. Okay, I'm going to draw this. Okay, move this out of the way. And then I'm going to draw the ear here. Okay. So this artwork I'm working on, I'm actually drawing it for Bleakhaven. Bleakhaven Comics. They're an independent publisher as well. So this kind of works out pretty well. I'm gonna show you guys some of their independent comic book work that I've done for them. So you guys get to see. They're really great guys. They also have a YouTube channel and podcast. And they asked me to draw this they're going to be using this for their podcast where they're going to be telling Christmas stories. You can draw some of the beard. That's the tongue. We make that a little bit longer. And here's the nose. And here's the open mouth. Okay, we'll make this the mouth. Okay, and then here's the face, and then we have eyebrows. Let me get one piece of artwork that I've done for Bleakhaven, so you guys can take a look and go grab it. Where is it? I think it's still inside the. I wonder what happened to it. Okay, so give me a second. I'm looking for the artwork. That's interesting. I don't know what happened to it. Okay, so here's one of Bleakhaven's artwork that I worked on for independent publisher. Just so I don't know when it's going to be coming out. They contacted me a while back, and I made that video from how comics are made from pencils to inks to colors. Check that out; it's one of my top videos on YouTube. This penciler is Josh Boswick. My name is Walden Wong, and this book is called Credence, Issue 0. And here's one of the characters, Mothman, more cartoony. I really enjoy inking this project. This one isn't published yet, so you're getting a sneak peek over here on this podcast. Maybe in the future I'll also ink this piece. I think they're okay. They're really nice guys. This is Josh's work, and the owner, publisher, his name is Stanley Boswick, and the publisher is Cassandra. And it's a team of those three people, and they asked me to ink this one issue, and to give me a lot of time, which is very nice of them. So I'm making this with a lot of inking textures. Like Josh is drawing it fairly simple. Let me show you how Josh's work looks. This is in blue line, and I'm going in there, and I'm adding a lot of details. Let me see if I can find a page of one of the characters that he drew that hasn't been, like, for example, this guy's hair. He would just draw it like that, and then I would go in there and create textures for the hair. Okay, they're allowing me to go crazy with the details. So here is this character. Okay, and then they're allowing me to go in there and just have fun with it. Okay, let's see. I guess I'm late to the party. Oh no, you're not late to the party. Oh, let me go back to the boys. So I know not Eric Larson, Derek Robertson, and he was working on the boys, the comic book. This was way before the TV show was out. He contacted me and said, "Walden, would you be interested in working on the boys? I'll be penciling it and you'll be inking it." I said, "Sure. What do you need me to do?" "Well, can you do a sample page first?" And I said, "Sure." So Derek gave me some of his pencils, and I inked it. And after I inked it, he looked at it, and then he said, I think I'm gonna work on it myself." So he later on decided he didn't want to have an inker ink his project anymore. He said because he had so many projects going on. He was like Mr. Hollywood. He's doing this, Transmit. He also worked on, I think he worked on a book called maybe Happy or something that Grant Morrison wrote. I'm not really sure. Comment down below if you know, or you can make comments now and let me know. Let me draw the detail here first. 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm gonna draw this a little bit faster, and then we have this character's fingers like this, and then here's his hand. I don't know who this character is. He looks kind of weird. Okay, I'm gonna go here. Draw. I think this is supposed to be Christmas theme. So the book I'm working on with an independent publisher is called Credence. They're really nice, very, very good guys. They originally asked me to do covers for them, and I actually penciled and inked some of the covers, and they're out. I don't know if you can find them in comic book stores, or if they're printing it and then they're publishing it themselves. Let me draw his tail. So even though I'm working for the larger publishers, every so often I will still do independent stuff, because it's just fun, especially if the publisher is okay with me going in there and going like crazy with the details. Okay, draw it here, and we have the girl. Draw the girl. Just draw them really simple, and then here's the hair. These 5-minute sketches, I thought they were going to be a little bit quicker, but it's actually faster if I draw it without talking. Talking and drawing, like, it sometimes slows me down a little bit. Okay, here's this. We have her outfit. We have her hands. We have this, and then she's holding a bowl of apples. Bowl of apples over here. We have her dress. We have the other hand holding this, and then we have her dress sitting here. Some of the folding line, and then here's a shoe, and then here's the other shoe there, and then we have the rest of the log. I don't know. There's a strap here. I'm not sure what that strap is. Just draw it in first. And then we have another strap or a hook here and there. And I'm gonna go into some chains over here, some chains over here. This is the fast way to draw chains. I'm gonna sign my name first. And then quickly go in here and start adding some shadows. Let me see if there's any questions. It's interesting that how some of you are watching my podcast and you're not asking any questions. I thought having an interactive podcast will make it fun and you can ask questions and I can answer it. Okay, so so working with independent publishers, you're learning a lot. Some I know I've met some artists that would not want to work with independent publishers. They're thinking that all I want to do is work for Marvel and DC. That's all I want. I don't want to do anything independent. There's nothing wrong with working with independent. Someone asked me, "Do you still do work for free?" I mean, not so much these days because a lot of the work I'm doing right now is paid work. So I really don't have much time to do free work unless they're like work for a friend or helping them do a project or something like that. Most of the time, I don't really have time to do free work. But back then, when I was starting out and I didn't have any work, like any work that would pay me, so I would actually go there and do a lot of free work. I didn't mind if they didn't pay me because I would get the work printed and I would have like something under my belt, and it was not bad back then. Like I didn't mind if I didn't pay because this is what I love to do, like just creating artwork. But today, free work is a little bit harder for me to do. Sometimes if my friends ask me to do it, like say like a relative asked me to draw something for him, or recently I drew a tattoo for a friend, a good friend. He wanted a Superman, a Venom drawing tattoo, and then he asked if I can draw something like that for him, and I'll do that for him for free because they're friends. But if someone asks me, "Hey, can you draw something for me for exposure?" I really don't have time for that, or like this will get your name out there. Like you know what? I've been doing comics for so long. I still get people contacting me, telling me, "Hey, would you like to do this project? It doesn't pay, but it will get your name out there." So I'll kind of pass. I'll politely tell them, I don't think I have the time, but thank you for offering. That's very nice of you. But most of the time, people don't really keep track of who they're talking to. I think a lot of times it's just like a form letter that they're just copying and pasting, hoping that someone will bite and say, I'll do free work. And if you're hungry for it, you might be able to do free work and it's okay. But if you don't really need it because you're already so busy with it, I would say don't do free work. But as someone who's new, who's not doing free work, or if someone who's new and you already have a full-time job, I know Daniel, one of my patrons, he has a full-time job. He has a really great job and he really loves comics and he really wants to work in comics, and he's worried or thinking about what if I do I have time to do free work? It really depends if you want to do it. If you, I would say just do it for the love of doing it when you're doing comic books. Like if you're getting independent, I think that if you do independent work, at least it's paid work. You're getting paid to do it, so that's still pretty good. Even if it's paid very little, at least it's still paid work. I'm gonna draw some random backgrounds. I'm gonna draw them maybe in a fence right over here. I don't know what these creatures. I'm curious. Once this is done, I'll also post links on my social media where you can look at the artwork where they're doing. I think they're going to be taking my artwork here, and then they're going to be making it look like it's being drawn as they're telling the stories, like Christmas stories. Give a shadow over here. And then there's some shadows over here. So there was a question. Heck yeah, I work for free. Hey, see, Danny's here. Oh, I was just talking about you. See, let's go back to some of the other questions. See, I'm guessing I'm late to the part. Danny wrote, Walden, I was working all night. Hands were busy. That's why I couldn't ask too many questions. No worries. I'm glad you're here. I was just talking about you. Kai wrote, any horror stories? Well, working in comics is like being super late on deadlines or something going wrong on art piece. Yeah, there's a lot of horror stories. Just the next one I'm going to draw is Santa Claus. This will be easy. Um, yeah, one time I was working on a comic book. You guys will enjoy these horror stories. I should actually save these horror stories for another podcast. You know what? I'm going to save this. Yeah, Kai, that's a great topic. I'm going to make that the next podcast. So you guys stay tuned for the horror stories and podcasts. I have so many of them. You guys are going to love them. Danny wrote, Walden, so what are the smaller comic book companies that you would recommend for the beginning to approach inking? Smaller publishers. I don't know if the publishers are still out there. Most of the publishers that I've worked with, they're not there anymore. Anarchy Press, I don't think they're there. I don't really know what kind of small publishers. You know what? If you're able to get a hold of some of the, especially these days, everything's all crowdfunding. If you're able to like talk to someone who's interested in doing crowdfunding and they're going to use your work, that's actually not a bad way to go. Even though like you're not getting paid, maybe after the crowdfunding happens, and if the book is really good, you might get paid. See what other independent publishers out there. I don't even know what kind of independent publishers are even out there these days. Let me try to think. Image is a good company, but those you're gonna have to like talk to. I'm gonna write down horror, horror stories, so I can save that for the next podcast. I'm still thinking about like so many horror stories that I can tell you guys. Many horror stories. Being stalked at the convention, like someone following me around, stalking me. People sending me messages, like sending me snail mail in my home. Lots and lots of horror stories, deadlines, and all that. Ready. Red 5 Comics is kind of small, independent. They're actually pretty good. I have a friend. Wow, dude, is not really a friend. I actually met him on Facebook. You know what? He works at Ref 5 Comics and Books, and he's pretty good too. Like when you work for Ref 5, they're actually pretty friendly. Let me draw his fingers here. He's holding his glasses right here, and here's his thumb, and here's his hand. Okay, and then we have the fuzz here. Ref 5 is a pretty good company. They're pretty respectable. I don't know how much they pay or what all that is, or if it's paid on the back end. A good publisher to work for, which I kind of see as a indie company, is Dark Horse. Dark Horse. You know what? Let me go back. Okay, these are some of the good companies that you can try to get work for because they pay. They don't pay that much. They do have work. Dark Horse. Contact them. Send stuff to like some of the submissions editor and see if they have work. I know when I contact Dark Horse, they always respond. They're really nice people. I don't want to name names of who to send it to because I don't like they'll probably be like not there. I would say look at the recent comic books and to see what kind of publishers are current, and then see if they're willing to hire people. So if you have inking samples or penciling samples, send it to Dark Horse. I would also say send it to IDW. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. I remember when I was working for Marvel DC, they would contact me and ask me, "Would you like to work on some GI Joes? Would you like to work on some Transformers?" And that was pretty fun too. So so contact them. Those are good publishers to contact. So Dark Horse and they'll pay you a page rate too. So you're not. It's not like you're doing stuff for free. You're getting paid to do it. So IDW, as well as Dark Horse Comics. They're two really good companies. If you're not able to get in touch with them, talking to people who are wanting to do Kickstarters, that's always a good thing because you always have work, but you're working on spec. And that's really based on crowdfunding to see if you get paid after the book is done, which is the same as Image Comics. Image Comics is where You're just doing the work, and then you're soliciting the work, and you don't know if your work is going to get printed or not. So yeah, try those different publishers. Add a little bit of detail here. I'm going to sign my name on top first. Walden, Wong. Let me see what other independent publishers I can think of. Let me see if there's any other questions. Walden, what are smaller colleges that you would recommend beginning? Danny wrote, heck yeah, I work for free. I have a great full-time job already, full benefits and retirement. Yeah, if you can work for free, just enjoy it. If you don't have any deadlines that if you don't have any deadlines to work on, just do it. I mean, it's fun. Like that independent publisher that I'm doing working for, Bleak Haven. Actually, contact them. They're good guys too. So if you contact them, tell them Walden sent you. They have lots of stories that they want to tell, and they actually contacted me and asked if I know any artists. And I was thinking of having them contact some of my Patreons. So maybe contact them. I don't know if they're ready to make bigger comics yet, but then they're really nice guys. Really, really good guys. Okay, so that's Santa. Let me see if there's any other questions. Red 5 is kind of small and independent. Yes. I was thinking about Red 5 for the longest. I have a whole list of independent comic book publishing companies. Is on my OPC though. Now be careful, Kai. A lot of these independent publishers that you may have written down, they may not be even doing comic books anymore. You'll be surprised how some of these publishers like just come and go. Most of them are just like doing it for a few issues and that's it. Not really anything more than that. So I really would recommend if you do contact publishers, kind of look for the website to see if they're still doing comic books out there. If not, go on to the next one. Publishers do come and go, especially independent publishers. Contact some. You can always look through some of the crowdfunding that's done these days, and then kind of look at how many crowdfunding. Sometimes you click onto their projects, you can kind of tell if they've done a lot. If they've done a lot, it's always not a bad idea to contact those people, especially the successful one, because there's a chance that they'll be doing more. And then as a crowdfunding company, they'll hire more. Like Brian Pluto from Coffin Comics. Oh yeah, that's another publisher I should talk about. I can't believe I forgot about that. Chaos Comics was another independent publisher that I worked with before they became Coffin Comics. I worked on Lady Death, Chastity, Halloween, based on the movie Halloween. So I worked for Chaos Comics, and they were a good company. Brian Polito knows who I am. When I was working on them, there was this editor. His name was Mike Francis. He was talking to me all the time, and they paid well. They paid on time. Everything was good. I did Chastity for them. I did a Purgatory. Those characters. I don't know if you guys know any of. I'm going to draw the North Pole over here just because it's fun. I can't believe I forgot about Chaos Comics. Chaos Comics is yeah. I'm glad I'm ending the podcast with Chaos Comics. Okay, Chaos Comics, they hired me to do a lot of work. One of the first works that I've worked on was Halloween. It was penciling over a penciler. No, it was inking over a penciler named Justiniano. Let me ask you some questions first because I have a really good story with Chaos Comics. Danny wrote, one of my dreams is to work on many books until I build a reputation of being reliable. Then I would like to live in an affordable state. An affordable state. Yeah, Danny, that's actually not a bad idea. I actually worked on a lot of books until I became reputable. There was a lot of practice working for Marvel, DC, independent publishers, like all the ones that I work on. It's really showing that you can turn in projects on time and on time. Also, communications with your editor is really important. If you're working for a publisher and you're falling behind and the editor contacts you, don't ignore your editors. Don't ignore your publishers. Always tell the truth. If you can't do the work, if you're falling behind, tell them. They'll appreciate you more if you tell them the truth. Do not ignore them. do not like ghost them. Just tell them the truth that you can't finish the book on time. Like I used to think that if I can't finish the book on time, they're not going to hire me anymore. That's not the case. If you can't finish the book, they appreciate that you tell them. That shows how professional you are. So in the future, if they're hiring you again, they know that they can rely on you to tell the truth, to finish the work. If you can't finish work, they know that you tell them in advance that you can't finish it so they can find another artist to work on it. So it's really important to be reliable, to be quick, and to be honest with your work. Okay. I'm going to eat this belt. Okay, so Chaos Comics, the first time I was contacted by Brian Polito's company. His company is now is called Coffin Comics, but back then it was Chaos Company. Chaos. He owned characters such as Ernie, Lady Death, Purgatory, Chastity, and all these. During the tobacco craze, just like what I was talking about, a Cinder. They were rock stars when they go to conventions. I remember going to a WonderCon when they were in San Francisco, and they had the hugest booth. The booth was bigger than a Marvel booth. It was bigger than a DC booth, and they had all these sirens and rock music, and then all their tablecloths were all like black color, and they had the artist that was drawing. Who's the artist that drew Lady Death back then? I know just there was one artist, something Hughes. I can't remember. It was Brian Pluto. It was Stephen Hughes, I think. Yeah, it was Stephen Hughes who was drawing Lady Death. He was a nice guy. He later on passed away from cancer and then couldn't draw anymore, because he's not around anymore. But they were all there, and there would be like a big banner of lines, and then there would be a lot of people looking for the autograph. That Brian Pulo is really good at marketing. Like he's a genius when it comes to marketing. He had the Fiend Club. I also joined the Fiend Club, which they'll send you like a little almost like a credit card, but it's not really a credit card. It's just a card that has your name on it, and you actually a card, and then you handwrite your name on it, and then when you brought that to the conventions, they would give you like a free comic book. Brian Pulo's wife is named. What was her name? Jessica. I think it's Jessica Pluto. I remember seeing her at a convention, and I would show her the card, and she would give me like an exclusive cover like that. Well, anyway, Chaos Comics, Mike Francis, he contacted me. So Mike Francis used to be, he was a fan of Chaos Comics, and he liked Chaos Comics that Brian Pluto hired him as the assistant editor. That's what I've been told at the time. He contacted me and asked me to work on Halloween. I mean, what do you mean Halloween? Like the Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween? Yep, Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween. The writer is Phil Netman, and the penciler is Justiniano. And then he was telling me these things. Working with these guys, they're really private. You can't really talk to them. Like really hush hush and all that stuff. So I did Halloween for Chaos Comics, and when that came out, that sold really well. Even today, if you look up that Halloween comic book in the secondary market, that goes for a lot of money. I don't know why. Maybe because fans of Halloween they like Halloween, or because of the penciler or whatever, or because it was a low run. But that issue of Halloween, I think it's like Halloween 3 or something, where I ate Justiniano. That issue fetches a lot of money. Okay. After that, I also worked on Lady Death, Chastity, all those other characters, and then Brian Pluto decided to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And they owe a lot of creators money. They didn't pay their invoices. I was sending out invoices to them, and they were paying. And then when they filed bankruptcy, the editor, Mike Francis, it's okay, you guys still get paid. So I thought, okay, they filed bankruptcy, maybe we'll still get paid. And I remember talking to Joyce Chin, Arthur Adams' wife. She also did some stuff for Chaos Comics, and then we were starting to get worried. I said, are they going to pay? Joyce said, I don't think they're going to pay. They just filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. If they do pay, it'll be pennies on a dollar. Okay, so I they actually owed me like I don't know, one issue worth of comics that I worked on, and it was never paid, and all the editors were like out of touch. Like I would call them, and you can't reach that number anymore. And then Brian Pluto sold all his characters except for Lady Death, and that was the end of it. I don't hold any ill will against Brian Pluto or any of his projects because it wasn't like it's not like they purposely asked you to work on stuff and you're not getting paid because the last two projects that I worked on it also wasn't printed, so it was just like accident on their part. Now if they printed it and didn't pay me, that's a different story, like kind of like London Night. That wasn't cool. Yeah. So Brian Pluto now he does a lot of Kickstarters, and if you contact them and ask if they're interested in working with you, see if you can contact them that way. That's not a bad way to talk to them. See, I was thinking Red 5 for long, so I have a whole list of publishers. Danny wrote, one of my dreams is to work on. Yep. Danny also, I think Justiano made it into the Wizard book, How to Draw Advanced Techniques. I don't remember if he actually made it into one of the Wizard book. Maybe he did. I did a lot of work with him because we worked on Halloween together. Later on, when he got hired at which publisher did he get hired? DC Comics. DC Comics asked, "Who would you like to ink your work?" And Justiano said Walden because he didn't really have an inker at the time, and Justiniano asked me to ink his work. So I worked with him on a lot of books. I remember the editor was Joey Cavalieri, and I worked with Joey Cavalieri like a lot, and then we worked on like so many books together. One of the books was The Human Race, which had a lot of details, and we worked on some Flash one half. Like when Wizard was doing these half issues, I worked on. I think I'm probably the only artist right now ever to work on the most Wizard one halves when Wizard magazine was around. So I remember working on Flash one half. I also worked on Witchblade one half. Also worked on Witchblade Tomb Raider one half, and I think I also worked on Laura Croft one half. And this was the time when they were doing all through Top Cow. And yeah, I did a lot of half issues. I remember DC Comics would also send me copies of the half issues. The half issues they didn't have, like when you used to order these magazines from Wizard, and then they have this coupon. You send in the coupon for $5 or whatever the amount of money was, and they would send you this half issue that was bagged in the Wizard bag, and it had a hologram in it. When DC Comics would send me comps, it didn't really have those that bag and the sticker. So these are all the commissions that I've done during this podcast. We have one, two. Let's see, let me count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These were supposed to be 5 minutes each. 5 minutes each times 12 would have been an hour, 60 minutes, right? 5 times 12, 5, 10. Yeah, 60 minutes. This podcast took me almost 152 minutes as we spoke. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. If you do, stay tuned for my future podcast. I think the next podcast I'm going to do is going to be called Horror Stories because I have so many of them. I'm glad you guys were able to tune in to podcast 1 and podcast 2 and podcast 3, this one, about more independent work. I think I covered the independent work. In the future, I'll be talking about Marvel work. I'll be talking about DC work, my first Image Comics work, my first work for Todd McFarlane Productions, my first work for Top Cow, and my first work for Disney and all that. I've done a lot of work and I have lots of stories to tell. Thank you for joining. Don't forget, please hit that like button. let me see what else Danny wrote first before I sign out. Actually, it's not advanced text. It's another one, but it is a wizard. The best basic training. My mistake. Wizard should actually, or someone should actually get all those basic training, like little art pages, and then make that into a book. Okay. Let me see. I've been fun, Walden. Great stories. Thanks, Walden. Really have been enjoying these live streams. I'm glad you guys like this live stream. Thanks again for tuning in. Look for you guys in the future. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone. See. Let me end this live stream with this. There we go. Now we're gonna have a beginning and an end. Take care, everyone. Bye.